On November 21st, 2003, a small Kentucky farming community would experience a strange and unprecedented event. Many in the community would report hearing a woman screaming for help. After several residents called 911, police and first responders combed the area where the yelling had occurred. However, they couldn't locate the source of the screams, which occurred in an open field. Just moments earlier, in the same field, several residents spotted a UFO landing. In this episode, we will examine the strange and terrifying 2003 Kentucky screaming sounds. In late November 2003, the National UFO Reporting Center would receive a report detailing the strange screaming sounds and the UFO sightings. According to the report, around 9 to 10 p.m. on November 21st, just outside Moorhead, Kentucky, a series of high-pitched screams could be heard. They sounded like a woman yelling, "Help me! Oh God, help me!" After a series of phone calls to 911, emergency responders rushed to search the area. They found nothing there, but just moments prior, the same area was the site of a UFO landing. Individuals at the National UFO Reporting Center were quite intrigued by the story, but there was just one problem. The report was submitted by someone anonymous. As a result, UFO investigator Kenny Young began taking it upon himself to track down and interview witnesses to the event. Initially, the police department appeared to get irritated when being asked about the night in question. The investigation stalled in the beginning, with no one willing to go on record and many refusing to talk. Interestingly, based on the writing style, the report submitted to the National UFO Reporting Center appears to have been written by either a police officer or emergency responder. 9 days after the event, Young was able to track down a credible witness who would go on record. Dr. Virgil Davis was a University of Kentucky college professor who saw the UFO, and his sons heard the woman scream. Dr. Davis recalls that on the night of November 21st, he was driving home with his 15 and 18-year-old sons in the car. They saw an oval-shaped, white-colored object hovering over an open field near their home. The object was hovering silently. It would then drop quickly and stop. Then once again it would drop quickly and stop once again. After a few minutes passed, it began moving around more randomly in the sky. Dr. Davis and his sons got out of the car during the time to get a better look. At this point, they thought it could be something else. However, eventually the three came to the conclusion that this was indeed an unidentified flying object. As such, they got in the car and began heading home. They were somewhat worried that the beings may have spotted them and they could be in danger. A few minutes later, they arrived at the home and went up to the second story. There, they looked out the window and spotted the UFO again. At this point, it was descending closer to the ground, and the color changed from white to orange. It got bigger as it came closer toward the ground and turned reddish eventually. Dr. Davis couldn't be 100% sure if it actually touched the ground, as some trees were blocking his point of view. While all this was occurring, Dr. Davis recalled that it was almost complete silence outside. However, once it changed to red, the silence broke. At that time, all the animals went crazy. His German Shepherd tried to break its chain and run off. After a few minutes, either on the ground or close to it, the red object then quickly ascended and shot off into the sky. From here, though, the story gets more bizarre. After the UFO disappeared, Dr. Davis's two sons went outside and heard the screaming sounds of a female yelling for help where the UFO just landed. The sons rushed over in their car to the area and called the police on the way. Others had called them as well, and soon there were dozens of officers and a helicopter over the field where the UFO was spotted. Dr. Davis would have an officer come to his door 20 minutes after the UFO left. Dr. Davis told the officer he had seen a UFO, and the officer stated he had seen one as well that night. The big mystery in this case surrounds the screaming sounds. They were heard directly in the field where the UFO landed after the sighting, yet no woman was ever found. While it's possible that no woman was yelling or that it's not connected to the UFO, several theories have formed regarding what the scream could have been. The first is that the woman was screaming as she was an alien abductee. Perhaps the beings were experimenting on her. Still, there's all sorts of questions around the alien abductee theory and its possibility. This is because the scream was heard after the craft left. Maybe, though, another spaceship, perhaps one naked to the human eye, was still present at the scene. One theory is that the beings were from another dimension. As they stepped into the other world, somehow the woman's scream carried over to our world. The flaw in this theory, though, is once again, Dr. David saw the craft fly away. A third theory is that the screams came from some sort of sound delay. We know these advanced beings are able to manipulate space-time in ways we can't begin to understand. Was the sound from inside the craft at a past time and somehow the scream got delayed? Or perhaps even from the future? The possibilities here are endless, and it's really tough for humans to imagine. The fourth theory is that the witnesses misheard something. This could be the most likely scenario, and possibly the witnesses heard a noise that sounded like a woman's scream. Regardless if the woman's scream occurred or not, the UFO sighting definitely appears to have happened. The question around the woman screaming is certainly an intriguing one. If it had occurred while the craft was near the ground, almost certainly the consensus view would be it was an abductee inside the ship. However, since it didn't, we'll almost never be certain who was screaming and why. Perhaps, though, it's better we don't know the answer to that question.